Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago, one of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose, as long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. This is your host, Sean. I seem a little down in the dumps because I just finished watching the Chicago Bears game. We're going to be talking about that statement game by Jake Arrieta, and I'm finally going to break my silence about Patrick Kane, all in this episode of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. First, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. Ice Hogs single game tickets go on sale already. They're already on sale for the home opener, October 17th against Texas at the lovely BMO Harris Bank Center. See the future stars of the Chicago Blackhawks today for a family-friendly price. Rockford Ice Hogs. Check out icehogs.com. Get yourself some tickets and a t-shirt. Support your Ice Hogs. Only 90 minutes from the city limits and family fun for everybody. Check out icehogs.com. So, I'm going to lead with the Bears. I mean, I'm hoping by the end I can chime in with a little Cubs talk, a little Blackhawks talk, and maybe feel a little bit better about myself, because we got the Cubs who are so close to clinching that playoff spot, and we've got the Blackhawks who are they are going to try to defend their Stanley Cup championship, but so hopefully talking about them will cheer me up. This Bears team is bad. I don't even know what to say. If you go back on my shows, I really tried to defend them. I really did. The hiring of John Fox. John Fox is a veteran coach, has a lot of great experience. Vic Fangio is a very good defensive coordinator. Adam Gase was one of the hot names as far as the head coaching jobs. You bring these guys in with a young, upcoming general manager, and you don't expect Super Bowl, you don't expect playoffs, but you at least expect the team to go out and compete every week. And, I mean, against Green Bay, they had their moments and played fairly well against Green Bay. And the score was much closer than the actual gameplay. But it was at least something to hang your hat on, that they competed with Green Bay, who's odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl, or one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl. You're like, all right, well, they played well against them, and historically they've played really bad against the Green Bay Packers. So kind of a win, sort of. And, you know, nobody in the Bears organization is willing to say that, because it's either a win or nothing. But the rest of us as fans or the media, we're looking at this as steps in the right direction. And that's, again, my feeling was, all right, we took some steps, better than last year, you know, improving increments every week until by the end of the season you hope you have some sort of respectable product that's on the field. And then the Arizona Cardinals come to town. Now, don't get me wrong, Arizona's a good team. I'm not taking anything away from them. They play in a really tough division, so who knows if they're going to actually make the playoffs, but they're a good team. Last year, they were one of the best teams prior to the Carson Palmer injury, and then once he got injured, that team just fell apart. They couldn't score at all. But, you know, this team is built to make the playoffs, and I didn't I didn't necessarily think the Bears were going to win. I figured they would have another game, would be very close, and maybe they pull it out at the end. I don't know. But this game just got out of hand. I mean, it started with the opening kick. 108 yards for a touchdown. Nobody touched the guy. And I don't know if that was the punch in the mouth that just sent the Bears careening out of control. But, you know, they end up coming back and scoring to tie the game up. But it just, it just felt that they have no answers for them. They could stop them, once on defense, but then they had the penalties. So my thoughts are kind of frantic right now. So let's take a step back here. Is where did the Bears go wrong? First of all, I'm going to lay into Jay Cutler. I've defended him a lot on the show, and I still feel that he's the best option that they had going into the season, because you're not going to start, some 6th round draft pick rookie, and there's no veterans out there. There's not even enough veterans. There's not enough quarterbacks in the league to fill all 32 starting quarterbacks on the rosters, let alone, being able to go out and upgrade one. So as bad as he is, Jay Cutler is an NFL starting caliber quarterback in this league, and that doesn't make him good. That just makes the league have a very bad quarterback problem. It speaks more to the quality of quarterbacks than it does Jay Cutler's talent. So the guy is the best option we have, and he goes out there and does Jay Cutler things. He throws a pass that's behind Martellus Bennett, gets intercepted, run back for a touchdown. And I'm putting 90% of this on Jay Cutler, but I'm also indicting Martellus Bennett. Is how many times is there a really bad Jay Cutler interception where he's trying to get the ball to Martellus Bennett, and Martellus Bennett is a really talented guy that refuses to try to make the quarterback look good. I mean, he just olayed that thing. I mean, granted that ball was behind him, but you know what? Knock it down, reach backwards, do something. Don't just lazily flail your arm at it like, I mean, it's so frustrating. Martellus Bennett just refuses to make quarterbacks look good. He only wants to make Martellus Bennett look good. And so it's, a lot of times when there's an interception and it looks bad, you don't know who exactly to blame. I mean, you always want to blame the quarterback when there's an interception, but what happens when there's a receiver runs a wrong route? The quarterback is throwing to where the receiver is supposed to be, and if the receiver runs the wrong route and is not where he's supposed to be, then that looks really bad on the quarterback when it may not be the quarterback's fault. But this is a case where you're running a crossing pattern, and Martellus Bennett, got the ball thrown behind him, but he didn't make any effort on that. So I'm going 10% Martellus Bennett. He needs, if this team is going to win, everybody's going to have to step up. Everybody. I mean, look at the Green Bay Packers last week. They had some guys who are not superstars come up and step up and make these phenomenal plays because they want to win. They want to get better. There's competition. The Bears don't do that. A winning team, somebody would have knocked that ball down, at least kind of turned around and interfered with the defender, and just anything to prevent that ball from getting intercepted. And if you're Jay Cutler, that's an easy throw. That is not a hard throw. The defender didn't do anything to make that play. The ball got thrown directly to him because it was a bad pass. When you're leading a guy, you got to lead the guy. You've got a cannon of arm, and you threw a lame duck there like you were Peyton Manning. It's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. And I get it that the team was asking you to do more than probably they wanted to ask you to do, and you're doing it with less because you have no Kevin White. You have no Alshon Jeffrey. That's not an ideal situation, and it's one that the Bears organization doesn't want to be in. But if you're Jay Cutler, you can't make these mistakes. And I guarantee it, he is not injured. He is not injured. That was him getting benched. There's a doctor that I follow on Twitter, and he made he noticed that when Jay Cutler didn't come back on the sideline, and he said when there's a hamstring injury, what's typically done is you ice it, and the guy goes on the bench with the ice wrapped around his hamstring. Jay Cutler didn't come back. There's no Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler's sitting in the locker room. That's a punishment. He's being punished. That's just a plain, simple fact. And it's backed up by the fact that John Fox, first they didn't want to say anything that was wrong. The second is the guy didn't limp at all with his. I mean, if anything, if they would have said his shoulder, I would have been like, all right, I can buy that. He didn't limp at all. And when they asked John Fox about it, he went, hamstring. He just said something. It's a sham. Jay Cutler got benched, and this was a winnable game, even with all of the shenanigans that were going on with the penalties and everything that was going on. Is if you look at the halftime, is they were down by 14, late in the first half, and they drove there they had the interception by Jared Allen, and they were right down there for a score. Is they could have easily scored that touchdown and been down by 7, and you're only down by 7, maybe even 4. If you get that field goal, this is a whole new ball game. You go into the halftime, you come out, you get the ball, you're able to move it, puts your defense in a better position because they're not going to have to sit on the field for half the game because your offense is able to actually get some first downs. The Bears' offense was moving the ball. So this was a statement. This is a statement. They're saying that Jay Cutler screwed the pooch, and they're willing to take a loss to teach him a lesson. This is an organizational decision. This is handed down. They're saying we're not going to let him run us out of town. He already screwed us on this play, and we're not going to let him do it again. And they yanked the choke collar on him. And I don't know how Jay Cutler is going to respond, because this is back-to-back games where he had critical interceptions that did they cost the Bears the game? Maybe, maybe not. Were they instrumental in preventing any sort of comeback? Yep, 100%. That interception last week to Clay Matthews, that just halted any sort of opportunity that the Bears had to come back and get back in that game. And when this game, it turned the tide. It went from an ebb and flow where the Bears were giving up bad plays, but they were just marching the ball down the field, to starting to open the floodgates for Arizona. And so Jay Cutler just can't do that. He's been in the league way too damn long. He's not a stupid guy. He knows exactly what, and he gets on the field and he does Jay Cutler things. And it's unacceptable, and I can't imagine him in the Bears uniform next year. He's going to be at the point with his contract that they're going to cut him and eat their losses and move on. And now's the part where I'm going to move on to indict this coaching staff by having Jimmy Clausen be the backup. Jimmy Clausen shouldn't be in this league. Jimmy Clausen is bad. Jimmy Clausen has a history of being bad. And if you're going to have a bad quarterback that can't play, why not be it David Fales, who's at least a young quarterback that could get better? Jimmy Clausen is old and bad. He's never going to be any better than you've seen him. You know what he is. He's bad. He can't play. He has no business being in there. And I don't care. It's mind-numbing to me why somebody would want a bad old quarterback as their backup. be like, well, if somebody gets hurt, you want to have somebody that's seen some experience. Yeah, you know what? He has seen experience, and he was bad in that experience. He played terrible. He's always played terrible. He's not a good quarterback. So it's just ridiculous to have him as your backup. David Fales should have been the backup. And I'm not saying David Fales is good. I don't know. David Fales is an unknown. Jimmy Clausen is a known. He's known bad. 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 And David Fales is I don't know. Maybe he's bad too. I have no idea. I have so limited understanding of what David Fales is capable of doing in the NFL because they don't give him a chance. He should have been the backup. And going forward, if Jay Cutler is, quote, too hurt to play next week, is they really need to think about having David Fales be the starter because Jimmy Clausen can't run this offense. He can't do it. He's bad. Plain and simple. And if they put Jimmy Clausen in there, they're just basically saying, we're trying to get a better draft pick. We're going to tank this season. And that's unacceptable. It's just unacceptable for an organization with as much history and pride as the Chicago Bears to do that. And this coaching staff. Offensive line, they played okay. I don't know what else to say. They played okay. Running backs played well. Can't hate on them. Wide receivers played all right. Considering that no Kevin White, no Alshon Jeffrey. But the defensive line still can't get any pressure. You got stone feet Carson Palmer sitting in the pocket, and you can't get to him. 0 sacks on the season. We're 2 games in. 0 sacks. 0. J.J. Watt's going to finish with more sacks on the season than the Chicago Bears defensive line. That's a bet. J.J. Watt. This team can't get any pressure. Pernell McPhee just looks like ordinary out there, and that's makes me feel terrible because I've touted him, and I thought it was a good signing, and he looked good in training camp, and I really thought he was going to be something, and he's been pedestrian. Jared Allen he's not getting these looks that Vic Fangio promised he would, where he would get single coverage against the tight end, and that's not happening. He's getting double teamed because teams know they're going to say, well, you know what? Let Pernell McPhee beat us. We'll see if he can. We know Jared Allen has shown in his NFL career that he can beat somebody. How many Pro Bowls has he been to? I believe he's the current active sack leader in the NFL. I don't think anybody in the NFL that's currently playing has more sacks than him. So teams go, you know, we will just take him away and see who else can beat us. And nobody is. Nobody's doing it. And then they're double teaming or chipping Jared Allen, and then they're running right at him. So I can't blame the guy if he's not getting there when he's being double teamed or they've got a chip on him. That I can't blame him for not getting there, but that should ease the pressure on other people. Willie Sutton should be pushing it in. Eddie Goldman should be pushing the line in. Jarvis Jenkins should be pushing the line in. And especially Pernell McPhee. But where I'm indicting Jared Allen is teams are running right at Jared Allen, directly at him, and he either overruns the play or he just gets eaten up and pushed right out, or he's just out of position and doesn't hold his contain. And that's been the knock on Jared Allen for years. I've said it when they signed him. I've said it since. Is Jared Allen doesn't like playing against the run. He doesn't hold his contain, and there's a lot of plays that the Bears are giving up yardage because they are not holding contain. So they can't get pressure on him. Against the run, I thought they were fairly good. I think Jarvis Jenkins had a good game against the run. I can't hate on him there. But where the trouble is Shea McClellan's awful. It's the time for the Shea McClellan experience to be over. And the defensive backs just suck. Antrell Roll is old. Adrian Amos is inexperienced, and he's getting out of position. Alan Ball they're calling penalties like crazy on that guy, and it's like he can't catch a break. And Kyle Fuller it's like he forgot how to play football. When I scouted him, he was the best cornerback coming out of college that year. So 2 years ago. And last year, in the first part of the season, he played phenomenally. I thought he played excellent football. And then he got a bunch of nagging injuries. And I started to say, well, you know what? When you have nagging injuries, you can't play as well. You're not playing the same game. I'm going to give him a pass. And I thought, coming into this season, he's healthy. He's got a whole year under his belt. He's got a brand new defensive coordinator who's going to turn things up. I thought, and play more to his strength. I thought, Kyle Fuller, it's going to be great. And made a fool out of me. He looks awful out there. You know, he just can't. He's not making coverages. He's not being physical at the line of scrimmage. He's not playing that tight man coverage. He's not who I thought he was. And I don't know if there's something else wrong or if it's his confidence is shot. But something's got to change. They can't keep having him be the cornerback, and the Bears not getting any pressure. Maybe if the Bears get a little pressure, he looks better. But in the meantime, you're not going to get coverage sacks because they're just not good enough. So it's so frustrating. And then you throw on top of that, there was bad officiating. And I don't want to say that this cost the game because it didn't. It was the Bears' bad play and timely playmaking by the Cardinals. I don't want to take away from the Cardinals either because they won that game. They were the better team. But the refereeing was bad. They called some chintzy, ticky-tack penalties on the Bears. They blatantly missed that. So on that really nice play where Jay Cutler rolled out and faked the run and threw a little pass to Matt Forte for that first down. There was a late hit and B, a helmet-to-helmet hit on the quarterback, and it wasn't called. Neither one of them was called. That was a blatant miss, especially since the umpire was standing right there. You can't miss that. And then on the play where Cutler fumbled, but they ruled the Cardinal player that recovered it was out of bounds. There was a face mask they missed. That's why he fumbled, is he's getting his face pulled, he lowered his arm, and then it got punched out. They completely missed the face mask there. That was despicable. And then on the one play where there was a pass interference that put him right down to the goal line, that should have, or maybe it was even a touchdown was called in there. I quit taking notes at some point. There was a holding against Chris Johnson. I didn't go back to rewind to see who it was that got held, but I believe it might have been Pernell McPhee. But there was a Bears defender that was going in for a sack and just completely bowled over Chris Johnson, and Chris Johnson blatantly held him, and that was missed. And they ended up calling a penalty on the Bears, and it should have been offsetting penalties. It shouldn't even have been a penalty on the Bears. It was another ticky-tack. I get the 5-yard rule for illegal contact. I get that. If you're altering the way that the wide receiver's trying to run a pattern, fine, call it. If you just put your hands on him to feel him as you're trying to run and look, no, that's not the spirit of the rule. That's chicken shit. And if there's little kids listening, pardon my language, that's chicken shit. And touching the receiver when the ball's in the air, that's calling pass interference. That's chicken shit as well. There's some chicken shit calls, and it didn't alter the game, but it did set up. The Bears weren't able to recover from that. It set a poor tone, and the Bears had penalties all over the place on every level. They set the all-time record for most penalties for a Bears team, 170 yards in penalties. 170 yards in penalties. That can't happen. You're not a good enough team. Green Bay can do that and win a game because they have Aaron Rodgers. You can't do that. It's despicable. it's unfathomable. You're the Bears. You're not good enough to be able to come back from 170 yards of penalties, and you got to play smarter than that. That's just a fact. And like I said, that's a record. The Bears have never had that many penalty yards. We've never had more penalty yards than that in a game ever. What else? Offensively, I thought the Bears had a good game plan. They had a hard time running the ball at first, so they used some read option plays using Jay Cutler's athleticism, and they used some trickery and some short passes to really move the ball, and they were moving the ball effectively. I thought that it was a great game plan, and they clearly were moving the ball, and they were getting touchdowns instead of field goals, and it was good feeling on the Bears. And I really felt that if they could get a penalty-free drive or defensive penalty-free possession and be able to get a 3-and-out or a good stop against Arizona, that they really had a chance to do something. And Jay Cutler throws that all away. It just makes me feel ill. I don't know what else you can do on this team. This is one of those types of losses where at this point you start to question everything about your team. I mean, is it the coaching? Is it the intelligence of the players? Is it the talent of the players? Is it your evaluation process as a general manager? Is it ownership? Where does the breakdown happen? You have more penalty yards than your quarterback has passing yards. It just can't happen like that. And then, I mean, just looking historically at this is the first time the Bears have started 0-2 since 2003. So over a decade since they've started 0-2. And this is the first time they started 0-2 with 2 home games since 1973. So that's before I was born, and I'm almost 40. So this is getting to historic bad levels. And everybody in the media kept telling you guys, oh, don't worry, Vic Fangio is here. Even if there's not better talent, you're not going to get these debacles where you're giving up 50 points. What do you have today? Almost 50 points. And granted, 14 of them are from a Jay Cutler pick 6 and a 108-yard kick return. This is still not the defensive showing that you're expecting from a Vic Fangio defense. It's not, and it's not going to be tolerated. I guarantee next week you're going to see some changes. And some of the things I don't understand is you've got Lamar Houston, who came back and really wanted to prove himself. It was being touted that he was going to be used a lot. And I don't even know how many snaps that guy got. I don't think he had any in the first half. I think he only had like a couple, maybe 2 or 3 last week. Where's this rotation that they've been talking about? It seems like it's Willie Young. Like they got Sam Acho got in there a little bit. It's the same guys in there over and over and over again. There's no rotation, and they're not getting penetration. If guys aren't getting the job done, why are guys still in there? It's unacceptable, and I don't expect to see that next week. Is I think Fangio is going to be livid, and there's going to be guys that don't get their starting spot for next week. And next week is going to be a tough game, because you're going to Seattle. And Seattle very well could be 0-2 at that point, and really they're going to go out there and they're going to manhandle the Bears. It's going to be an ugly game. I didn't look for any questions, so I apologize if you guys sent any questions in. But if you guys do have questions and you want to discuss the Bears, please feel free to get in touch with me. You can either tweet at Swerski Sports or facebook.com/Swerski Sports, or go to the website swerskisports.com, and all of the ways to contact me are there. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. feel free to ask a question, hit us up, anything, and we'll definitely discuss your point or ask your question on the air and try to answer it. I didn't really check it today. I was feeling pretty miserable, even more so than the last 2 years. Anything else I want to talk about Bears related? I guess going forward is that if Jay Cutler truly is hurt, which I don't think he is, and he's not able to play next week, Jimmy Clausen can't be the quarterback to start that game. He just can't. You've got to see what you have at David Fales, because Jimmy Clausen, you know what you have, and he's dog turds. You really could put a helmet on a dog turd and get about the same result. You're going to end up, teams are going to stack the box knowing that, this is ultimately what happens is teams stack the box knowing that they're going to run the ball and try to do screen passes and short passes. They're going to stack the box. It's going to be like Terry Shea when he was here. You're going to get the running back hurt. You're going to get Matt Forte hurt. And that's going to, as good as Jeremy Langford has looked, he's not Matt Forte yet. And Matt Forte is the best healthy offensive weapon you have. So you need him. And if you get him hurt, and Jay Cutler's not playing, and Martellus Bennett is just, he just wants to get paid. He doesn't care about winning. He's not a team player. And what you have is just a disaster ready to happen. And if you can't get that offense moving and scoring points and at least getting first downs or shifting field position, that defense is going to get exposed. So that's bad news. And the other thing to keep an eye out is, what is this veteran coaching staff going to do to keep this locker room from exploding? This was a bad loss today, and they're already still nursing their wounds from last year, the guys that were here. And they had a loss last week to Green Bay at home. You had a bad loss today. And of your 8 home games, you've already played 2 and lost them. So you've lost a quarter of your home games already. That means you're going to have to win games on the road, and that's really tough in the NFL. This is what you hope to do in the NFL, is you hope to win all 8 of your home games and split the road games, so you end up being 12-4. That's what good teams do. Is you hope to win you expect to win all of your home games and split your road games. This is a team that's not very good. They've already lost a quarter of their home games. You don't expect them to fare much better on the road. So I don't really know what to expect. But like I said, please feel free to get your questions in, and I will answer those. I want to switch gears a little bit. I don't want to talk too much about Blackhawks because there's nothing really to mention. I did say that I expected the Blackhawks to not go into this season with without signing another veteran defenseman, and that's exactly what they did. Is they re-signed Michael Roosevelt to a really low deal, which gets them just under the, they still fit under the cap, barely. So they bring in Michael Roosevelt, who looked terrible last year, but was a guy that Coach Quenneville was always comfortable with because he knew what to expect from him. Whether wasn't always good, but he was consistent. And that was a guy that I expected them to bring, or I expected them to bring in a veteran presence at defenseman, and that's exactly what they did. So, wasn't a guy that I was expecting them to bring in, but it was a move that I was expecting to make. As it stands right now, I'm guessing, especially since they're about to re-sign Brent Seabrook to an extension, that you're going to see Keith and Seabrook as your first pairing. Jalmerson and I don't know who is going to be the second pairing, and then probably Roosevelt and Van Riemsdyk. So, I don't know who that sixth guy is going to be. You've got a young Dylan Fournier who's, right there that they might possibly. You've got Trevor Daley, who's a veteran. He's in his 30s, the backside of his career that you have there that could do it. You got Vili Polka, who's going to be your future. He's going to be a future guy that you're going to have there that is definitely somebody to keep your eye on, because that's always a possibility. Victor Svedberg maybe, and I'm guessing David Rundbladt's going to be your seventh guy who's going to just go in there if need be. But as it stands right now, I don't really know what to expect from the Blackhawks, because as far as defensemen goes, they're pretty unpredictable. You have on your as far as your forwards, you have Artemi Panarin, who's one of the new guys that they brought in. He's a Russian player. He's a really young kid, 23 years old, and he's a guy that signed a contract that is basically, if the Blackhawks don't keep him on their roster and they try to send him down to Rockford, he has the option to head back to Russia and play in the KHL. And he's a really high-powered offensive guy. Not a very big guy. He's 5'11", 170, roughly Kaner size. But it was in a cool move in being interviewed yesterday. He was talking about how a bunch of the Blackhawks veterans, the guys on the team, learned some Russian words to try to make him feel welcome and be able to speak with him. And he's trying to learn some English. So there's some common ground there that he's trying to communicate with his teammates, and he's feeling a bond that because they've reached out to him. And that's a good sign. That's a really good sign. And I'm going to take a wild guess that Jonathan Taves was involved in that, because he's just the ultimate captain. So offensively, I'm not that concerned about the Blackhawks. They've got a lot of talent still in that team. It's going to be what they do on the back end as far as the blue liners. That's going to have me concerned. I mean, and you got your top three that are definitely really talented dudes in Seabrook, Keith, and Joel Emerson. So it's not like they're going to be bad. It's just going to be what the last three guys are going to look like. So more about the Blackhawks, in a week or so, when we see a little bit more, we get a better sense of what's coming out of the practices and who's likely to make the team, who's going to be sent down to Rockford, and who's just plain going to get cut. Because there's some guys that are signed to tryout deals basically. But the point I want to bring up with the Blackhawks, and I've kept my mouth pretty much shut about it to this point, is Patrick Kane. And there's been a reason that I've shut my mouth about it. Is the main reason being is I didn't want to bring the negativity on the show. Everybody else was being just incessantly talking about Patrick Kane, and I didn't want to bring that negativity on the show. And the other thing is, none of us have any idea what happened. I don't want to disrespect this girl if something really happened. I don't know, and I don't want to be a victim blamer or doubt her accusations. I don't want to do any of that. But I also don't want to pin something on Patrick Kane because there's speculation either. So it's really a tough position to be in this type of situation when there's a rape. And I don't want to call it sexual misconduct or any kind of assault. It's a rape. This young girl is making an accusation that she was raped by Patrick Kane, and that's a really serious charge. And if he did it, I want nothing to do with him. And I hope the NHL takes their punishment and makes it swift and harsh. And I don't care if it hurts the Blackhawks. I love the Blackhawks. I don't want to see them lose, but I also don't want them to win by having a rapist on the team. It's not acceptable to me. But on the other hand, if this is a case where there's a false accusation, then I don't want to create a situation where this guy is being unnecessarily punished. And granted, he made a boneheaded play by his alcoholism, and he's an alcoholic. It doesn't matter if he's dependent on alcohol. He's well in his 20s. He's pushing. He's on the other side of the 20s. Closer to his 30 than 20. And he's still making stupid decisions because of his use of alcohol. And I'm going to call that alcoholism. He needs to get that under control. And he's got a girlfriend. Why is he bringing other girls home to his or from the bar to his house? It's just not acceptable. That's really not something that you are looking for in your highest paid player and one of the faces of your franchise. It's embarrassing. This is a black eye to the organization. Whereas Jonathan Taves is just the golden child, and what every team wants out of their captain is just a guy who says all the right things and does all the right things, and all of his teammates love him. And I don't think there's anybody in the league that hates him. They may want to beat him, but he is just a good dude. And Patrick Kane is not the polar opposite, but he is on the other end of that spectrum. And the Blackhawks are stuck in a position they don't know what to do. So again, I didn't want to comment on this because I don't know any of the facts. Everything that's coming out is coming from one reporter in Buffalo who keeps citing an unnamed source. I don't know who this unnamed source is. This unnamed source could have been a voice in his head. Could have been all something he made up. It could have been a legitimate source. I don't know. But we're at the point now where this investigation has been going on for a good amount of time, number one. And number two, things are coming to light that make it seem that Patrick Kane is actually innocent. Makes me feel more comfortable in discussing this case. One of those things is that they have not filed any charges against Patrick Kane. None. If there was really any sort of evidence, Patrick Kane would have been in handcuffs, taken into custody. They went to the grand jury. The grand jury, it's not a trial. All they're looking for is there enough evidence to bother even going to court? Is there enough evidence to just even go to court, let alone have a hearing, go through the hearing process? And they have not been able to finish that either. There's nothing. Patrick Kane's lawyer has said there's absolutely nothing. We're absolutely not discussing any sort of financial agreement either. So there is no financial discussions, and there's no criminal proceedings happening. There's no arrest. There's nothing. That really doesn't happen unless there's an innocence. And then also the NHL organization, who really wants to take a stand against this kind of thing because they don't want a black eye like the NFL has. They evaluated everything that's going on, and they're allowing Patrick Kane to go and show up to training camp. The Blackhawks are as well. But they're pissed. The Blackhawks are still pissed, and they have every right to be pissed. But there's no evidence that Patrick Kane has done anything wrong as far as a rape accusation. There's a lot of things he did wrong as far as being a turdy dude and making poor life choices, but those aren't arrestable offenses. Those are just things that make you second guess giving the guy a huge sum of money. So all those things added up, and it really brings into doubt whether or not there's ever going to be any sort of arrest of Patrick Kane. I really doubt it. I think this is just going to wash away. So either there's absolutely zero evidence and it's just somebody saying that it happened, or that there's enough holes in the girl's story that make it not believable. I don't know what it is, but there's absolutely nothing in there that makes it arrest worthy. So that's why I'm finally speaking out, and my statement is that Patrick Kane has a lot to be sorry about. He's embarrassed himself. He's embarrassed his family. He's embarrassed his girlfriend. He's embarrassed the Blackhawks organization. He's embarrassed the NHL. He's embarrassed all of his sponsors. He's embarrassed his fans. And that's something that he should be sorry for. Regardless of, and to back up one quick second is I don't know exactly what happened in there. And if something did happen, if he did rape that girl, I feel so sorry for her because that's something that nobody should have happen to them. But I'm going to go on the assumption that nothing did happen because nothing has been done about it. And Patrick Kane still has a lot to apologize to people for. And he owes it to everybody that he hurt to change the way he is. He needs to quit drinking. He needs to do things right. He needs to take Jonathan Toews lessons. And the Blackhawks embarrassed him by parading him out back-to-back days in front of the media and making him not be able to answer questions and keep getting grilled. And it was embarrassing to the Blackhawks organization because it was like Huey, Dewey, and Louie out there, or, Bozo and Wizzo and Cookie. It was just a clown show out there with everybody, but it's just a bad situation for the organization, and they're pretty much stuck either with this guy or trading him for a lot less than what he's worth. And that's about it for the Blackhawks. And finally, I'm going to wrap it up with Cubs talk, and I'm a liar, and I didn't want to discuss the White Sox again because I just don't see the point. We'll do a season wrap up. They're second to last place. They're so far out of the wild card. They can't do anything. We all know where the flaws are. We've discussed them on end. They can't get it right. Let's discuss positivity in this season. If you're a White Sox fan, it's fine to root for the Cubs. I'm a Cubs fan, and I was rooting for you guys at the beginning of the year as White Sox because I thought you guys actually had a chance to be a competitive team. And it turned out that my team is the competitive one. So it's okay you don't have to be a fan of the other side of town, but you can appreciate what they're doing and cheer them on and hope that they do well. So I would hope that the White Sox fans come aboard and at least wish the Cubs well and appreciate their city brethren and want them to experience a World Series like you guys did in your lifetime. So last week when we talked about the Cubs, there was a lot of things where they were in a position where they had a good lead in the wild card, but there was still enough games and enough history with this organization that made you really start to worry and go, crap, could they pull a Cub type thing and Cubs being Cubs and give this up? And I was really nervous that was going to happen. I mean, couldn't you see that happening? I mean, isn't that something that you could really see happening is the Cubs blow this huge lead and, wind up losing the wild card to the Giants. But then, we talked about some of the scheduling they had coming up, and the Giants have a much easier schedule. Other than that Dodger series, it's a pretty easy schedule. And the Cubs had 7 games against the Pirates, and however many against the Cardinals. It's a lot of games against a lot of good teams, and you had a Royals game in there, so it's not a tough, or it's a pretty tough position to be in for the Cubs, and even with that big lead. But then you start that 4-game stand against the Pirates in Pittsburgh, and that was one I predicted that they were going to win 3 of 4. I really did. and they went out and won 3 of 4. They started there with a loss, which was a tough loss. They lost by 1 run, had a comeback, come short, and that was a rough one. And then you have Jake Arrieta, and you're like, all right, we're going to hang our hats that Jake Arrieta is going to get his 20th win. The Cubs are going to beat the Pirates, and we're going to be able to reset ourselves and right this ship a little bit. And you had an absolute statement game for Jake Arrieta that he didn't get a decision on. Jake Arrieta against the Pirates pitched 8 innings and gave up 6 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, and dropped his season ERA to 1.96. And there was another run in there because there was Arrieta had an error, Montero had an error, and there was a run that was unearned. So he gave up 2 runs. Only one was earned. Didn't get the decision because when he left in the 8th, it was still 2-2, and the Cubs come out and win that one in extra innings and get that 3-2 win. And granted, Arrieta didn't get his 20th win, but it was such a dominating pitching start that it eased the burden a little bit. I mean, the extra innings kind of sucked, but eased the burden of the bullpen, and it was just a commanding game where you went to a playoff team. Like, the Pirates are going to be in the playoffs. You went to a playoff team in their city against one of their top starters in a game that they needed to win, and you just shut them down. That's got to feel good, and that's got to make you feel good in your chances of beating them in a 1-game wild card. So that was awesome to see that. Really step up. And then the Cubs come in, and granted they lost today to the Cardinals. They win that series, 2 out of 3 of that series. So they win 3 out of 4 in Pittsburgh, and then come back and win 2 out of 3 against the Cardinals. That's awesome. And Cubs magic number is down. I mean, depending on what the Giants do today, they're up 1-0 at this point. But if they lose, the Cubs magic number is down to 4 with only like 14 games left, something like that. If for nothing, the Giants have a 4-game series against the Dodgers coming up, and they've been getting spanked by the Dodgers. So that should be something to look for, that the Giants themselves could end up winning this. And why this is important is some people are like, well, why does it matter? As long as you get in the playoffs, you get in the playoffs. I mean, if it comes down to it and the Cubs lose 8-9 games in a row or something, and the Giants win in those, and it's a real touch and go at the end of the season if you're going to make the playoffs, then you start having to play every game like it's a playoff. You have to pitch your put your best starters in there. You're pitching Jake Arrieta as much as possible, John Lester as much as possible. You're putting all of your starting position players in there as much as possible, not giving anybody a rest because you need to win these games. And you come down to it, and say you have to win those last 2 games, and you end up getting Lester and Arrieta to get you those wins. I mean, when you go to Pittsburgh to play that 1-game wild card, who do you start? I mean, are you comfortable? I mean, at that point, the Pirates are going to be able to rest their guys and reset their pitching rotation, and they're going to be able to put their number 1 starter out there. Are you going to be able to do that? So they're going to put their number 1 guy, and you're going to have, Hendricks out there, or your Hamill, or Dan Herron, or whoever else, Travis Wood, Kiyoshi Wada. Who are you going to be starting out there? It puts you in a tough position to win that game. But if you go out there and you knock this out by, next weekend, you only need 5. You need, between your wins and the Giants' losses, you need 5. And in the next week, so there's about 2 weeks left of the season. In that next week, if you're able to go and get 3 wins yourself, and the Giants get 2 losses to the Dodgers, there you go. You've got a week or so, maybe even a little more, to give your guys rest. Let Arrieta take a start off. Let Lester take a start off. Give Schwarber a day or two off to get fully healthy. Let Soler get his feet back under him. God forbid, put somebody else at first base and let Rizzo have a day off. You give everybody a day off, get a little bit rested, get a little bit mental health, reset your starting rotation, so that way, come that, you can put whoever you want in that one-game playoff, regardless of who Madden decides on. If he decides it's Lester, you can put Lester in there. You're not limited by having those guys, already pitched and can't pitch them again on a short notice. Is you can start them. You've got the time to reset your rotation, and you can put either Arrieta or Lester in that game, and then have the other one ready to go for the first game of the series against St. Louis. And that's really what you want. Is you want all your guys mentally and physically feeling healthy. You want your bullpen and to be as if it doesn't matter if you win these games, you can start pitching guys that you're probably not going to pitch in the playoffs because you're going to tighten up that rotation probably. I mean, the bullpen probably. So you can throw guys in there that you might not. Is give a couple innings to Tyoshi Wada, throw a Dan Herron in there as, let him eat up innings because he's not going to be pitching in the postseason. Is who cares if you get racked and knocked around? Is let him pitch 7 innings. Who cares? He's going to retire anyway. It's not like he's got anything to be healthy for next season anyway. Is you can do all these things and you can set yourself up so you're as healthy as possible and ready to go and in the best position possible to get all of your dudes to get as many starts as possible in an actual lengthy series for the postseason. And that's really important. But looking at the two teams that are vying for this spot, and I mean it's sort of inevitable that the Cubs are going to get this one of the wild card spots, but until it's mathematically absolute, I'm nervous because I'm a nervous Nelly. So right now the magic number's down to 5 for the Cubs, and the Giants are in progress against Arizona, holding a 1-0 lead in the 6th. They have Monday off, and then they start a 3-game series in San Diego against the Padres. I don't really like that because they play really well against the Padres, and they have their number. And then they have 3 games in Oakland against the Athletics, which is kind of like a home game because they're just across the bay from each other. I don't really like their Cubs or their chances in that. So I don't look for them to lose too many of those games. But they're going to have at least one loss in there. And then look at the Cubs. Is they lost today, but they start a 3-game series at home in Chicago versus the Brewers. So 3 games against the Brew Crew. And you expect that they're going to get at least 2 wins out of there. I mean, Arrieta's pitching the next one. You got to expect that against the Brewers, he's going to get his 20th win of the season. So you expect them to win 2 out of 3 there. Knocks the magic number down to 3. They get a Thursday. They're off on Thursday, and then they have a 3-game homestand against the Pirates. And the way the Cubs have been playing, you really expect them to win 2 out of 3 against the Pirates. So by next Sunday when they roll around, that magic number could very well be, they could have this locked up. As if, the Giants lose 1 game in a 6-game series, road series, and the Cubs, win these 2 series, which are winnable home series against teams that they've beaten. That's 5 right there, and that leaves you with, if at that point you got a game against the Royals, and then you go 3 road games against the Reds, and then you turn around and go to a 3-game series against the Brewers, and that's a whole week. You've got 1 whole week to get yourself back into position. And even if it comes down to that at that point, is next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, there's a 3-game series against the Dodgers for the Giants, which is never good for them at this point of the season. It's actually a 4-game series, sorry. and then 3 versus the Rockies, who they've had trouble with this season. So you really expect the Cubs to win, and they're playing well, and they're starting to play well defensively, which is what you really want to see, because that's when you get into the postseason. You've got an expanded roster. You're going to see more pitchers be used for individual matchups to get that righty-lefty matchup. You're going to have less runs scored for the most part, and you really need to play good defense to try to limit the other team's run production. And Castro has been playing very good defense at second. Addison Russell has been incredible all week long with these amazing plays at shortstop. You're just like, the hell is going on? Baez has played well. I mean, we always knew Baez was a good fielder. It was whether or not he could hit at the major league level. And we'll talk a bit about Baez more. But you had Baez out there. And then you brought in a couple guys that are good defensive outfielders to come in late in the games if you have a lead and try to hold that lead with the defensive specialists like Austin Jackson. So you're starting to see the Cubs click on all cylinders. I mean, as long as the starting rotation holds up, this is going to be a bad Mama Jamma team that nobody's going to want to play in the playoffs. And speaking of Javi Baez, since they brought him back up, he seems like a completely different guy than what we saw, last year. And even at the beginning of the spring training of this season and when he got sent down, I don't know if it's the passing of his sister really got him to refocus on baseball and think that he's not fully, where he wants to be. Or if it's seeing two guys that were, younger than him. I mean, not younger, but they were drafted after him in Schwarber and Chris Bryant get called up ahead of him and shown a lot of success at the major league level. If that kind of opened up his eyes. Or if it was getting embarrassed by getting sent down this season, if that was it, or if it was the injury that caused him to come back and refocus. Whatever it is his stubbornness is end. He's changed his approach at the plate. He's still not looking great out there, but he's getting much, much better and looking more and more like the guy that we thought he was going to look like. And that's a positive sign for the Cubs. Another positive sign for the Cubs is Soler coming back. He hit a home run to help them win the game against the Cardinals last night. And he's a guy that I still think is the best young hitter on the Cubs. And if he can come back and be productive and healthy and be an outfielder, they've got so many weapons that they can throw it. If you need to bring in a pinch hitter, I mean, look how many outfielders you have now. You've got Schwarber and Coughlin and Fowler and Bryant and Soler and Jackson, and I mean, you've got a lot of guys that can hit the baseball and shown that they can hit the baseball, that you can bring them in. And I mean, in the infield, you've got a ton of infielders. So this is a team that has a lot going for them, and this is going to be a tough team for anybody to knock out of the playoffs. And your best bet to knock them out is going to be Pittsburgh knocking them out in a one-game playoff series, because in one game anything can happen. In a longer series, in a 7-game series, there's a lot of coincidences that have to happen to be able to beat this team, and you're going to have to beat Jake Arrieta twice. You're going to have to beat John Lester twice, and those aren't the easiest of things to do. So that's about it. I mean, we're on the Cubs watch. Keep checking out the Twitter at Swerski Sports. I update it every day after the Cubs game, after the Giants game. If there's any news, update it with what the magic number is. And hopefully by the time that I do a show next week, is that magic number is down to 0, because that would be fantastic if the Giants lost today and lost a couple against San Diego, and the Cubs were able to win both those series against Pittsburgh and the Brewers. You would see a happy boy right here. So I want to thank you guys for listening. I apologize about this Bears game. I mean, it's not my fault, but it's embarrassing. Yeah, thank you guys so much for listening, and please do me a favor. Make sure you guys hitting subscribe, whether you listen on YouTube or Stitcher or iTunes, however you're listening, just hit subscribe. Give us 5-star rating, leave a comment, tell a friend about us. Just we want to keep these numbers growing, and the show is getting bigger and better. Or it's getting bigger. Hopefully we can make it better too. But thank you guys so much for listening, and until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Dick and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on planes.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears!
Oh, when the Bears go bearing down